Chapter 1. In the beginning. Near the end of the summer in 1597, a 14-year-old girl, a witch named Meg, is walking in the ancient woods near her family Cornish cottage, where she lives with her grandmother Goodness and her uncle Joshua St. John. The woods are much larger in 1597 than they are now. Meg's long black braid tied with a faded green ribbon swishes down her simple rough gray dress as she walks. Her silver-gray cat with dark green eyes follows her out of the cottage around the nearby village. When in the village or near, Meg endeavors to appear as normal as anyone in her village, especially to any who may be watching, until she reaches the woods where the shadows are thick and dark. The pretense is no longer needed. If anyone in the village or church thinks that she may be a witch, even if they don't know for certain, they will hunt her. Once deep in the shadows, the cat walks around Meg to lead the way through the dark. "Come on, Gideon," whispers Meg. "Please lead the way to the best herbs, roots, and nuts." Gideon swishes his tail and moves ahead quickly. He stops and whines, so Meg knows to come over and pick him up quickly. There is someone in the shadows ahead. She soon realizes why Gideon has done so, when a voice calls out, "Ah, good morning, Miss Meg," croaks an elderly man who squints nearsightedly at her. His iron gray hair is covered with a patched brown cap. "Good morrow, Mr. Goodwin." "Where are you heading, lass?" Meg moves closer to the gentleman so he can see her and hear her better, still holding Gideon in her arms. "I am foraging in the woods for herbs, leaves, nuts, and the like." "Ah, good. Rabbits and the like are illegal for hunting except for Lord Delaney and his ilk." He sighs. Thank goodness he's not prohibiting fishing yet." Meg smiles at him, knowing that he's endeavoring to protect her. She puts Gideon down gently, then places a hand on her friend's arm. "Thank you for letting me know. My grandmother is wanting to make some of her famous nut bread with what I can find. The nuts and herbs sure add flavor." Good lass. Be careful." "Thank thee. Good luck with the fishing." Meg smiles. "I will see you later." Meg continues to walk into the woods with her cat following her until they are deep in the shadows. Then she follows him. He, with sure, light paw prints, leads the way. He follows the breeze through the thicket of trees. Meg, following, begins to stoop, gathering leaves, roots, nuts, and berries until they come to the shadow of a large ancient oak tree. Gideon stops, nods his head distinctly, his paw prints fading. Meg walks quietly to him, then peers around some of the shadows to the light streaking to the old oak tree in the view. They both see a richly dressed young man sitting at the bare spot at the tree's roots. "Is it safe to talk here?" Meg asks Gideon. Her familiar shakes his head no, and moves towards the other side of the shadows. Once closer, it's easier to see who's sitting at the base of the tree. The young man is a teenager of similar age to Meg, and very richly dressed in embroidered green silk tunic. He is intently reading a thick leather volume and notices very little around him. Meg whispers to Gideon very softly, "May I speak with him?" "Meow." "Yes," comes from the cat. Meg walks around the bushes and roots to the local lord of the manor's youngest son. "Good morrow, good sir." "Oh, good morrow, Meg. Please, for the 8th time, call me Simon when we're alone, and when we are not, Sir Simon is fine." "Good morrow, Simon. May I join you?" "Please do." Meg quietly sits next to him and putting her basket on the other side. Afterwards, Gideon joins them, sitting on Meg's lap. She gently strokes his silky fur. Simon places a cloth gray bookmark with some fancy green embroidery in his book and sets it aside his book to enjoy his female companion and her cat. His head tilts towards Meg as he asks, "May I stroke your cat?" "Yes, gently. How are you feeling? How is the leg today?" Simon shifts uncomfortably as he strokes Gideon. "I'm still lame, but not as in much pain now, thanks to your grandmother's herbal rub and teas." He quickly adds at Meg's look of concern, "I just want to read in the coolness and the peace of the woods, away from the noise and the pressures of family, clergy, and servants." He pauses and looks a bit guilty. "Are you going to tell?" "No, it's just you and me enjoying the coolness, the peace of the woods with my cat Gideon." Meg smiles at him. Will you read to me? Do you wish to learn how to read? Yes, very much so. And to write, too. If I do, we both will be in a lot of trouble. Simon nods his head in a sad acknowledgement. He starts to open his book when Gideon dashes into the bushes. Meg gets up quickly and smoothly, following him into the dark shadows. Simon quickly puts the volume that he is reading into the empty hunting bag, as his leg prevents him from joining them in hiding in the shadows. The sounds become louder and louder as a big, strong young man of 16 years, richly dressed in green embroidered silk, approaches on horseback. He scans his surroundings until he sees Simon. Then he gets off his horse, leaving his horse and the dogs nearby in the small meadow. Greetings, Simon. Greetings, George. George is older, healthier version of his brother. He walks with a steady stride and a bit of a bounce towards his brother, while his dogs leap after a rabbit, while his horse happily grazes. The brothers have the same chestnut brown curly hair and very similar honey-colored eyes. Simon's eyes are clouded with pain, as he lives with constantly, where his brothers sparkle with good humor and health. George stands staring at him for a moment, then sits down beside him, carefully, due to his good clothing. Why are you here? Asked George. I'm hiding from our parents, in particular, Father. Why? I do not want to be a priest, and he is pressuring me to become one again. What, again? Asked George. Do you want to be a priest? Asked Simon, knowing the answer. Lord, no. But please, tell me why you don't want to be. There are several reasons. However, the main one is one that you can relate to. Yes, I like women and want the possibility of marrying one day and having children. Oh, Simon, I know it's not likely to happen with my health. However, when you are the Lord, are you going to force me to be a priest? No, if you really don't want to be one. I don't, nor have I ever wanted to be one. I thank you for not forcing that life on me. Simon sighs. Father will be riding with his hounds by tea time, and Mother will be busy with our sister Mary and her ladies. I can go home safely then. When I'm home, I can assist you with the manor's accounting. That is what's troubling you, yes? I should not need your help, but I do, George sighs sadly. I'm just not as clever as you are. Really? Is that why you are in the forest, too, talking to me and not riding your horse at a mad pace? Yes, George chuckles. I'm hiding from Father and the steward. Pretty clever. Simon smiles at his brother. We have different strengths as men, as brothers often do. Together we will make our lands, our people, and the manor prosperous. We both know that I have a better understanding of mathematics than you do, and you have a better understanding of animals and farming than I do. Together we are a powerful team. George nods his head with relief and enjoys the peace for a short time with his brother, until the loud sound of horses and dogs are heard again. The noise becomes louder and louder, and a familiar voice rings out, calling George's name. That is Father. I will go and meet him. Do not be concerned. I will not tell him that I found you. There is no reason to lie, George. Father is not looking for me. 'Tis you he wants. I'm sorry, Simon. At George's painful expression, Simon responds positively with a smile. Don't be, George. Father's indifference to me does not hurt my feelings. It's easier for me to escape than you. I will join you in the library after tea time. I will see you later, when things are quiet at home, George replies as he leaves. He calls out loudly, Hello, Father! A large man, richly dressed, stops his horse impatiently. He is blond and blue-eyed, unlike his sons, and waits impatiently on his horse as George approaches. George whistles for his dogs and mounts his horse. The two men, horses and dogs, soon disappear into the hills. As Sir George and the lord of the manor disappears, Gideon reappears first, then Meg. They join Simon at the base of the tree again. Simon speaks quietly. George feels guilty that he is now Father's favorite. "'Tis only because your oldest brother, Sir Richard, has died. 'Tis not really favoritism, and rather sad, and Sir George knows that," adds Meg. "Yes," Simon agrees. "How fares your sister, the Lady Mary?" "Father is looking into marrying her off, or sending her to the nunnery, whatever's cheapest," exclaims Simon in disgust. Does Lady Mary have a preference? One that she has told you about? Asked Meg. No, not yet, or at least not that she's told me. Mary's only 12. What would you choose for her? Simon does not think long before replying. Sir Christian de Craig has been writing her some very nice letters. He is at least literate and seems to be a kind man. His father certainly is and was a good husband. I hope that Sir Christian will treat his wife with the same care and respect like his father. So he's trying to get to know her, observes Meg. Yes, Simon nods. You need to encourage her to write letters back. I should? Women and girls are not taught to write well. Lady Mary may feel inferior. Less, explains Meg. I will, but Mary does not need my assistance. My sister can read and write quite well, Simon adds proudly. Ask her then. Help her achieve whatever makes her happy. Meg pauses, then continues. Simon, you are going to need to look out for your brother and sister as much as you are much smarter than either. If you do not want to be a priest, you will need their support too. Simon nods his head and says nothing for a bit. He looks with some intensity at Meg, which she does not notice as she's straightening her long skirt. Gideon does and moves about Meg's legs restlessly. She begins to stroke him again, and he pretends to fall asleep. Meg is aware of the cat's deception, but pretends not to notice, and turns her attention back to Simon, who is watching the two of them carefully. He leans over to pet Gideon. However, Meg stops him by taking his hand. Simon is content to hold her hand, as he does not remove his hand, even when Meg starts speaking again. Will you read to me? Simon reluctantly lets go of her hand and responds, I am reading Le Morte d'Arthur, not the Bible. It's in French. Good. Meg smiles and nods her head with pleasure. Simon grins back at her and takes the volume out of the hunting bag. He starts reading from the last place in the story that they read to in French. For almost an hour, Simon reads in the quiet of the woods to Meg and Gideon until the sound of another voice interrupts the story. Simon stops reading, and they all listen to the rustling of the leaves. A quiet voice calls out to Meg, Meg! It's my grandmother. I must go, Simon. Thank you for reading to me. Meg pauses as Gideon leaves her lap. She stands and calls out, I'm here, grandmother, and I'm coming. In a soft voice, Meg says to Simon, I will see you later. Goodbye for now. Simon replies, Goodbye, Meg. Bye, Gideon. Meow. Meg and Gideon disappear into the woods. Simon watches them disappear, then puts away his book carefully. He gets up and slowly limps home. One of the main reasons he enjoys reading in the forest is to see Meg and her companion. And that is the end of the first chapter. So I hope you will be on the lookout for Enchanted Tima Portalis, available at your local bookstores, on my webpage, and online.